Hi, I'm Sam. I'm your MEC Mobilization Chair. In this video, I will illustrate the changes in TA2 for Section 16, Sick Leave on-the-Job Injury, Section 29, Performance-Based Pay and Retirement, and Section 32, Attendance Policy. For additional videos, explanations, and the full details of TA2, visit contract2022.afaalaska.org/TA2. In TA2, your total sick leave accrual remains unchanged from our current contract. In TA1, 2 sick leave banks were negotiated to satisfy Washington and Oregon state sick leave laws. A couple of important things to remember. There's no restriction to accessing either bank at any time, and you may use either bank for any sick call. Which bank you use is a strategic decision to avoid attendance points. The changes to sick leave are necessitated by Washington and Oregon paid sick leave laws. TA2 exceeds those state laws, and the state bank allows for more flexibility than our current sick leave. Despite management's preference to apply sick leave laws on a state-by-state basis, Section 16 was negotiated to incorporate the most beneficial state sick leave provisions across the board. The state of Alaska currently has no sick leave protections, and the state of California has an exemption from sick leave laws for employees covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Our negotiating committee bargained to ensure our flight attendants will have more flexibility than legally required, while also placing restrictions on management for things like the legally allowed verification periods, which I will clarify later on. The total sick leave accrual rate is the same as our current industry-leading rate. Just like today, for every 10 TFP worked accredited, including vacation, but excluding sick leave and stranded pay, you will accrue a total of 1 TFP. That 1 TFP will be split into thirds. 2/3 will go into your CBA bank, and 1/3 will go into your state bank. For example, if you're credited for 75 TFP in 1 month, you would accrue 7.5 TFP of sick leave. 5 TFP will go into your CBA bank, and 2.5 TFP will go into your state bank. Let's look at the way the CBA bank accrues on its own and its uses. Your CBA bank will function the same as your current sick bank. 2/3 of your monthly accrual based on worked and credited TFP will go into your CBA bank. Sick family will still be deducted from the CBA bank with no points assessed, provided you have enough TFP in your CBA bank to cover the sick family call. The following items will not change from the current sick leave and attendance provisions: an industry-leading accrual rate between the 2 sick banks, up to 6 banked points, quarterly and yearly record improvements, the same attendance point values, the 18-month point roll-off, the termination threshold point amount at 12 points, and the single continuous occurrence of illness of up to 10 days. The following provisions will change. The maximum CBA bank accrual has increased, and for 2025, we will retain 4 quarterly point reduction forms. Beginning in 2026, we will have 3 point reduction forms, 1 per trimester. Keep in mind, the point reduction forms will now be offset by the flexible usage and additional protections of the new state bank. The state bank will be discussed in detail shortly, but as a preview, the state bank accrues no attendance points. You can use it strategically multiple times throughout the year, not only once a quarter, and you can use it when you need time off for qualifying events other than when you're sick. The maximum CBA bank accrual, which functions the same as our current sick bank, has increased from 1,700 TFP to 2,400 TFP, and the retirement payout has changed from a blanket of 25% to 25%, 50%, or 100% of your sick bank balance based on the total sick leave in your banks at the time of retirement. Another TA2 improvement: flight attendants who retire with 30 or more years of occupational seniority will have the balance of their sick banks paid out at 100% rate regardless of their total balance. In summary, your CBA bank will function the same as your current sick bank does, but with a 2/3 accrual rate. The same protected absences, such as intermittent family leaves of absence and sick family. The attendance point values have not changed. There is now an increase in the maximum sick bank accrual and an improved payout upon retirement. And when using the CBA bank, you will never need to verify the reason for your sick leave. Lastly, with the increase of the boarding pay rate from 0.42 TFP in TA1 to a half a TFP per boarding in TA2, we accrue sick leave even faster. Now let's break down the state sick bank accrual and use. Going forward, 1/3 of your monthly sick leave accrual will be deposited into your state or protected bank. Upon implementation, 40 TFP from your current sick bank will automatically be rolled into your new state bank for immediate use, and anything over that will stay in your current bank, now called the CBA bank. The state bank can be used for reasons other than illness. This includes preventative care, domestic violence, harassment, sexual assault or stalking, bereavement, funeral or making necessary arrangements, public health emergencies such as school or child care closure, evacuation at domicile, and unsafe air quality or heat index at your place of work. Remember, you will not receive attendance points when you use the state sick bank. Probationary flight attendants can use their state bank after 90 days and they will not receive an occurrence. Using your state bank does not impact your yearly or quarterly record improvement, and state sick bank leave counts towards the TFP overage needed to achieve the Productivity Premium Program payout, or PPP. While there's no state bank accrual limit during the year, at the end of each year, you may have a maximum rollover of 40 TFP from the current year's state bank to next year's state bank. You can transfer the remaining balance over that 40 TFP from your state bank to replenish your CBA bank, or you can cash that excess out at 100% rate. You can change this selection each year, or you can keep the same selection with no change. State law allows the company to require verification for state bank sick leave for any absences of 4 consecutive workdays or more throughout the entire year. However, our negotiating committee negotiated a considerable reduction to that allowance. Verification was reduced to a maximum of the same 3 10-day periods per year for all flight attendants, with a requirement for the company to notify us at least 2 days prior to the start of each 10-day verification period. Here are the verification requirements. 1. The company has given notice at least 2 days prior to the start of the verification period, and 2, that your absence is at least 4 consecutive workdays. It's important to highlight, if it's not a verification period and you call in sick using your state bank, you do not need to provide any verification for your call and you will not receive any attendance points. If it is in a verification period and both of the verification requirements I just mentioned are met, you must provide a note from a healthcare provider or other substantiating evidence within 10 days of your initial call. Remember, if you're calling in for less than 4 consecutive workdays, no evidence is necessary. Keep in mind the company must reimburse you for any out-of-pocket medical costs associated with a sick call made during a verification period when you're using your state bank. Verification periods will be the same for all flight attendants in all bases company-wide. The verification periods will be a maximum of 10 days and are limited to a maximum of 3 periods per year. And again, the company is responsible for reimbursing all out-of-pocket medical costs for all flight attendants that use their state bank during these periods. To break it down, if you use the state bank outside of a verification period, no verification is required. If your initial sick call of a single continuous occurrence of up to 10 days happens before the 2-day advance notice of a verification period, no verification is required. And again, if you use your state bank for fewer than 4 consecutive workdays, you guessed it, no verification is required. And remember, using your CBA bank sick leave will never require verification, even if you use it during a verification period. If there's not enough TFP in your state bank to cover your entire sick call, and you ask scheduling to use your state bank, the leave will automatically switch to your CBA bank when your state bank cannot cover another full day of the sequence. As your CBA bank is still subject to attendance points, you could then use your point reduction form or banked points if available. To summarize, upon implementation, 40 TFP from your existing sick bank will automatically be rolled into your state bank for immediate use. There's no maximum accrual amount, and at the end of the year, you may roll over anything in excess of 40 TFP to your CBA bank, leaving that 40 TFP in your state bank for the following year, or you can cash the excess out at 100%. This bank's improved and gained provisions include protected sick leave with no points, additional flexibility for use in situations other than illness, and improvements above the minimum state legal requirements. A few things to note. By default, a sick call will be designated to the CBA bank unless you indicate otherwise when calling crew scheduling. That being said, if you have called in and designated either bank, but later decide you would rather have used the opposite bank, you can call crew scheduling prior to the end of your next sequence and you can switch banks. Your CBA bank use will be as follows. Call crew scheduling, Designate your CBA bank for your sick call. There's no verification required. You can then use your point reduction form or banked points if applicable. Again, you may also change your designation to your state bank prior to the end of the next sequence you work to avoid attendance points. If it is a verification period and you switch to the state bank, you'll need to provide that substantiating evidence. For using your state bank, you'll call crew scheduling and designate your state bank for the call. If your sick call is not within a verification period, no further steps are required and you will not receive any attendance points. If it is during a verification period and the leave is 4 or more consecutive workdays, you must provide substantiating evidence within 10 days of your initial call. If the call is for less than 4 consecutive workdays, no further steps are required and you will not receive any attendance points. Again, you may also change your designation to your CBA bank prior to the end of your next work sequence, and then you can use your point reduction form or your banked points. Thanks for watching, and look for the Magenta Mobilization Volunteers profile photo frames on social media. These are individuals you can trust to provide accurate TA2 information. You can also connect with your base mobilization chair, your LEC officers, or the negotiating committee. Don't forget to visit contract2022.afalaska.org/TA2 for more informational videos and TA2 resources.